$78.39 per month for a Tesla Model 3, brand new.
Hey everybody, my name is Kevin Pira. I am a certified financial planner, and today I am reacting to Stephan. He has a video called How I Bought a Tesla for $78 per month. This video has over 8 million views. Now it did come out 6 years ago, but there's no doubt that this video is very popular, so it's 100% worth reacting to, and so that's what I'm gonna do today. And now I don't claim to know everything about finance, but I'm hoping I can put in some good insights here for you guys. Let's go.
I just bought the $35,000 Tesla Model 3, and just like any 28-year-old millennial would do, I ordered it online without ever having seen it and without ever having driven one before. Here's what happened. I was browsing YouTube and happened to come across a video announcing the arrival of Tesla's $35,000 Model 3. As I was watching that video, I opened up a second tab in my browser just to spec one out for fun. I honestly had zero intention of ever buying one. It's just a guilty hobby of mine to go to car websites and spec out brand new cars just to see how expensive they would be.
I actually do that all the time too. Not as often recently, but I've been on sites like Porsche and stuff like that, building out different cars. It is a lot of fun, you know, to do that and just see what the prices are. And I know with Porsche, I mean, those cars can get so expensive, especially since the options are so expensive. So I can relate to this.
So I went on Tesla's website and got to work. The standard range Model 3 begins at their promised price of $35,000, but I quickly realized that if you increase your budget just a modest $2,000, you'll get an extra 20 miles of range, a slightly higher top speed, power-adjusted seats, premium interior, and upgraded audio, which honestly seems like a decent value. Then we get to colors. If you get any other color besides black, it'll cost you up to $2,500 more if you want red. Now, I'm all about saving money, as we all know, so we're going with black today.
Yeah, so this is kind of known as like the option ladder, I think it's called. There might be a specific term, but basically, I know Apple is really well known for doing this, where you get, you know, it's a slightly better model with slightly better specs, and then you want the slightly next better model with the slightly better specs, and you just keep going up the ladder until you're basically at the top product that they offer. So companies like Apple, Tesla will use that to try to get you to go to something that may be out of your budget.
Next, they give you the option to upgrade to 19-inch wheels for an extra $1,500. Nope, that's not gonna happen. Now we have the choice of interior color, either black or white, but white is an extra $1,000 and I would be worried about getting that dirty, so black it is. And finally, we have autopilot. For an additional $3,000, the car will stay in its own lane and keep pace with traffic. A must-have for anyone lazy like me. They also offer full self-driving capability for an extra $5,000. This includes navigating highways, summoning your car, and a few other technologically amazing feats. But for $5,000, I think I can just do that myself. So now, within just a few minutes and less time than it takes to make a bag of popcorn in the microwave, I was done configuring a Tesla Model 3. However, it should come as no surprise that the $35,000 Model 3 is not really a $35,000 Model 3. My just-for-fun spec car with very few options came to a whopping $40,000. Classic bait and switch, am I right? Well, kind of. Even though the car is technically a $40,000 car, it's hard not to focus on the number at the bottom of the screen where it says price after estimated savings. So how does a $40,000 car come down to a price of $29,450? Well, to start, this car is eligible for a $3,750 federal tax credit until June 30th, 2019. This means if you pay more than that in federal taxes, you will receive this entire amount back at the time you file your tax return. That money is pretty much as good as cash. California drivers are also eligible for a $2,500 electric vehicle rebate, in which the state will literally mail you a check back for $2,500 upon.
Okay, so he's saying that the federal tax credit is as good as cash. Not really. That's a non-refundable credit. So what that means is you have to have actual tax liability that you owe to make use of that on a dollar per dollar basis. So when it's non-refundable, let's say you have no tax liability that you owe, that credit isn't going to do anything for you. It's only going to remove the actual liability dollar for dollar. And then he's mentioning this other tax credit where they're going to mail you a check. That is true. Back then they did. They might have it now still, but back then they did have a tax incentive tax credit where they would mail you a check in the mail in California. However, that does have income limitations, which I didn't see Graham mention here. I think it's about $150,000 for a single filing individual. So definitely not as good as cash. There are a few things happening here, I think, that are already getting a little fuzzy, but let's keep watching and see what Graham comes up with.
On showing proof of purchase. Now Tesla gets a little bit sneaky after this because in that $29,450 figure, Tesla also includes the estimated gas savings over 6 years of ownership, which comes to about $4,300. Now,
I don't know how that's even really allowed. Hopefully you can turn that feature off, because I would be so frustrated if I was speccing a car and then they were giving me the incorrect price based off their assumption of how much I'm saving in gas. And of course that only applies if you're going from a gas car to an electric car. And obviously I'm not like an electric car hater, but obviously you still have to pay for electricity unless you had like some free like supercharging or something already included. So again, that is a very misleading thing to do, to show you the price of what the car is with supposed gas savings. That's pretty tricky stuff, guys.
From my perspective, this would apply to any electric car you purchase, not just Tesla. So this is really only comparable if the buyer was to otherwise buy a gas-powered car. So excluding the gas savings and only focusing on the first two cash value rebates, the actual price of the car comes to $33,750 for a brand new Tesla Standard Range Plus with autopilot. Now, maybe I'm just impulsive, maybe I'm delusional, but it was honestly at this point that I just figured, you know what, why not? That's a pretty good deal. I'm just gonna go ahead and buy it. So I did. I even got a picture of a lemur once I placed the order. And I have to say,
that changes everything, right? Obviously, Graham is very wealthy, and even back in 6 years ago, I think he was, doing pretty well off. So for him, this may not have been a very big purchase, but I do worry that this type of video is gonna make people think, oh, I can just go, buy this Tesla and do these things, and it's gonna come out to the same amount of money, which the math is coming soon. But the one thing I will say is, purchasing a car is a pretty bad experience for most Americans. So, when Tesla came in and they offered this online platform that you can just spec it and buy it that way, I mean, yeah, especially for the younger generations, that is preferably how we would like to purchase something, is not physically go in person and do all of this testing and back and forth. Well, we want to test the cars, but we don't want to go with the back and forth with like a salesperson. So that is true, generally speaking, for most people.
Coming from someone who's purchased several cars before, this was by far the easiest car buying experience I have ever had in my entire life. There was no driving around, spending hours at car dealerships. I didn't have to pretend like I was disinterested just so I can spend days negotiating the price down. There weren't any dealership upsells. I didn't have to receive random calls from car salesmen calling me every few days to follow up if I had found something yet. No, Tesla was different. It was as easy as clicking buy it now on Amazon, and it was amazing. Now, I had originally intended to purchase the car outright in cash, but I couldn't help but notice their offer soon after I placed my deposit. 100% financing for 72 months at a 3.75% interest rate. That's low, and at that interest rate, I'd get a better return investing my money literally anywhere else instead of buying the car in cash. So just like the car, I figured, you know what, why not? I'm going to do it, and I applied for financing. 10 hours later, I was approved. This means that my total out-of-pocket cost to buy a brand new Tesla Model 3 was $4,437.01, which included sales tax, the license fee, and registration. That was it. And now with that out of the way, I couldn't help but wonder, could they actually fulfill their promised delivery time of 2 weeks? So now
No, we know how Tesla was back then. I don't know if that's still the case, but obviously they were very behind on all their vehicle, production. Again, I don't know if that's something that they fix now. So if anybody in the chat is a Tesla owner that purchases a new Tesla, let me know, because I know there was a lot of production issues that they were having back then.
It's officially 1 week after placing the order with absolutely zero update whatsoever from Tesla. I feel like a kid logging in every single day on the Tesla account just to see if there's any update that's been posted, but There's never any update. Looking online for answers really isn't much better either, because no one else has any clue what's going on and no one has any idea how long this could actually take. Some people are quoting an Elon Musk tweet saying that the cars will actually be ready in June and not March, and some people doubt his ability to actually just make a decent car, so the sentiment isn't really looking good right now, but I will keep you posted. So now it's officially 14 days since placing the order, and I just logged online and saw that they changed the new delivery date to March 29th. This is exactly 1 month after placing the order and 2 weeks longer than they expected it to take. To me, I definitely feel like Tesla overestimated just how fast they can get these cars out here to try to get people to order them who would think that they'll get their cars a lot faster than they really will. And I mean, I can't totally blame Tesla for this because it worked. It's kind of like telling someone you're 5 minutes away when in reality you're 10 minutes away, and then after that person's already waited 5 minutes for you, what's another 5 minutes?
No, that is not something that's cool to do. That's awful. And for a company that big, especially to promise, a vehicle, you put down money, you put your deposit down, they say, hey, it's going to be there in 2 weeks, and it's not. That's a big problem. And I know that 1 month delay is probably on the shorter end to what a lot of people had. And so basically they're collecting the money up front, the deposits, and then they're probably using that to get the production going for the cars and trying to stay ahead of the curve, basically, where yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call that a thing where you can't blame them. That's really poor business.
The same thing can absolutely be said about ordering a Tesla. This is the 2019 Tesla Model 3, and today is my first day owning the car, and we're going to be going over all the quirks and features, and then we're going to give it a Graham score.
Of course, that is a Doug DeMuro reference there. If you don't know, check out Doug DeMuro. A lot of good car reviews. He's definitely one of my favorite channels out there.
I've always wanted to say that. But no, in all seriousness, today is my first day of getting the car, and I have to say that I absolutely love it. And of course, when I was looking online, I read a lot of issues about panel gaps and poor paint jobs and scratches everywhere. I couldn't find a single thing wrong with this car. My only issue with this, if there is anything, is that you have to slam the driver's side door for it to properly close. If you don't give it a good slam, it's not going to close all the way. I'm not sure if that's just a Tesla thing or if that's just my specific car. But other than that, this car personally is perfect. And of course, just as a friendly reminder, if you haven't already smashed that like button yet, make sure to do so. Otherwise, you're going to get ligma. And honestly, the entire process of going and picking up a Tesla was amazing. It was like walking into a high-tech, minimalistic Apple store where there must have been 2 employees for every 1 customer, so anything you would need was pretty much attended to immediately. And after going through the experience of buying a Tesla online, completely sight unseen without ever having driven one before, I honestly have to say that I don't see the concern of Tesla not having any physical car dealerships to buy cars from. I just think we're naturally entering an era where everything is done online. Like, I haven't been to a physical store to buy anything in ages just because it's a lot easier and more convenient to go and buy that item online. And also, the online stores tend to be a lot cheaper because those stores have less overhead and they pass that savings on to the customer. And sure, this online ordering method isn't for everybody. I think my parents still love going to physical stores and like going to an actual bank to deposit a check. But I also think we just instinctually prefer what we're accustomed to and what we find normal that we grew up with. And I think for a lot of people who grew up with the internet, it's just going to seem normal to go and start to buy cars and maybe eventually buy houses just online. So you might be wondering now, how did I get this car for $78.39 per month? Well,
all right, so here we go. We're about to go over some of the numbers here on how we came out to that $78 per month figure. I'm going to assume some very tricky math is going to be used here. Let's find out.
Here's how. Now, because I financed
I love that smile on his face. He knows there's some tricky stuff going on here.
100% of the car, my only out-of-pocket cost was taxes, insurance, and registration, and that came to $4,437 the 1 cent. Now, because I financed the cost of the car, this means I now have a monthly car payment to make. This car payment is $640 per month, which works out to be $7,680 per year. This means that my total cost to buy this car in the first year, including monthly payments, taxes, license, and registration, comes to $12,117 and, of course, 1 cent. However, even though I've paid that.
So real quick before he gets to the tax rebates, I can't remember if he included the insurance here on the cost. He's got the annual loan payment and then he's got the tax and the registration. I don't see the insurance on there, so not sure if that's included. It might be or it might not be.
That amount out of pocket, I will get back $2,500 from California's EV rebate program. I'll get back another $3,780 from the federal tax credit, which remember is all money that I get back. And that brings down my total cost of ownership in the first year to $5,867.01. But
so like I said, that rebate has income limitations, so I'm not sure if he actually qualified for that fully. And then also he's mentioning the federal tax credit. Again, that's a non-refundable tax credit, so he's going to have some tax liability to get the full use out of that. So for most people, I'm already thinking that this isn't going to apply, but let's see what other tricks he's got up his sleeve here for the rest of it.
wait, there's more. It gets even better because I bought this car specifically for business use, which means the $1,438 in interest that I pay financing the car is a tax write-off. I also get to write off the $4,437 in taxes, licensing, and registration as a tax write-off. I can also depreciate the value of the car about $8,200 in the first year. All of that combined works out to be about a $14,000 tax write-off, which should save me about $4,925 in taxes. So remember, like I said, my total out-of-pocket cost to buy this car in the first year is $5,867.01. Plus, on top of that, like I said, I'm saving $4,926 on my taxes, which means that...
Okay, before he goes any further here, so he's using these tax write-offs, these deductions, to make it seem like, you know, his out-of-pocket cost is lower. Obviously, this may apply to somebody who's using the vehicle truly as full business use, which is a whole different, you know, topic. And then also, let's not forget that some of these things are not something you can do for more than 1 year. The tax depreciation, I believe you could probably do that for 5 years for a vehicle. However, taxes, registration, you know, that's only going to be the first year, I'd imagine. And then for the loan interest, I'm not sure if that's 1 year or if you can keep doing that. But either way, this only is really plausible if you're using it full-time business use. And also, if you're someone who's, you know, just has like a normal W-2 employer and you're trying to do this, this is not going to work at all. And again, this is pretty tricky stuff because this really is more about his out-of-pocket cost is what it was. And then trying to get some of that back through taxes, some of it he may get back depending on his tax bracket, whether or not that full federal tax credit was actually fully usable for him. He was able to wipe off the full, you know, $3,750. And then the California EV rebate of $2,500 did even qualify for that. So again, these are some things I'm just a little bit worried about. Graham has mentioned that he is a full-time real estate professional, so being a full-time real estate professional, he might get that status, which gives him some type of, you know, flexibility when it comes to offsetting or, you know, offsetting some of his income due to passive activity rules. But again, that doesn't really justify how you came to this number. This is such a very misleading way of doing this. I mean, this is pretty poor stuff here.
When you reduce that from the total amount and you divide that over a year, it's effectively like I'm buying a brand new Tesla Model 3 for the out-of-pocket cost of $78.39 per month.
No. I mean, in reality, we have all the other things that he's not mentioning here. So I'm not sure if he mentioned insurance. Of course, you got to get new tires. There's going to be the basic maintenance on still even on a Tesla. Other costs, the vehicle is going to be depreciating each year. And not to mention, even if you did take all this at face value, the $78 is only for the first year. And then the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years are going to look 6, 7 years are going to look completely different. And obviously, you know, as we know now, Tesla is depreciated like crazy. So This is some crazy, crazy math going on here. It's very tricky, very misleading.
And realistically, this works out to be a free car when you consider that most of that $640 a month car payment is principal. It's not interest. And also the fact that I'm
No, that's not how that works. I mean, you can't justify it and call it a free car just because you have a low interest rate and the amortization is mostly going to the principal. That's not, you cannot justify that like that.
leveraging my money by borrowing it at 3.75% to go and invest it elsewhere that will actually make me more money than paying down the car in full in cash.
But you've used the money and the financing to get into a depreciating vehicle, and that is the real problem here, and that's where you're losing most of your money, of course, is you're taking and you're financing a vehicle into a depreciating asset, into a liability, and at the end of the day, that is what's going to hurt you, 80, 90% of the time. This is, of course, the fact that he's a financial influencer. He's able to make a very popular video out of this with 9 million views, which is going to buy him a Tesla many times over. That's the real arbitrage for him, not this kind of silly tax saving. It makes for a good video, but in reality, it's very misleading. So we got to be honest with that.
But no, in terms of actual out-of-pocket net cost to own the car, $78.39 per month for a Tesla Model 3, brand new.
For the first year, with very tricky finance and math, it's bullcrap, guys. That is not absolutely how you should look at buying a vehicle. I really hope people aren't watching this and thinking to themselves, well, I can just replicate this. He has a very niche way of maybe finding a way to do this. And even then, I don't really take this at full value. And it's only for the first year anyway. So very misleading, I'd say.
So here's a fun little thing right now, but my dad has no idea that I got the car, and I'm just gonna go and show up and surprise him with it. I just told him right now that, like, hey, I'm close by, let me just stop by really quick. He probably thinks it's a little out of character for me just to be like showing up randomly, but anyway, let's see what his reaction's gonna be. Come on in.
Oh man, Graham, a friggin' Tesla. Oh, dude,
Told you.
this is
Isn't it? Yeah.
incredible.
Okay, I will say, hey, it's fun that you're making memories with your father. However, you don't need to buy a Tesla Model 3 to do that. And that's one of the downside of cars is, you have people that are so supposedly impressed by what you bought. And that's what, suckers people into thinking, hey, I should go finance this vehicle, this liability, and that's what's going to make it worth it for me. Again, final thoughts here. I think this was a very tricky math type of video, very misleading, very niche scenario case where that would work for a specific amount of time. And again, who knows if those credits were actually used properly, if he actually qualified for them. We don't know his specific tax situation, but no, definitely misleading. But hey, whatever, fun little silly video, but be careful of what you're watching online because a lot of times the details are left out. But that's all I got, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.